Good afternoon. I would like to welcome you to the Sedona Mayoral Candidate Forum, which will be on the ballot for August 4th primary election. Our forum is being hosted by the League of Women Voters Greater Verde Valley and sponsored by the Sedona Chamber of Commerce and Tourism Bureau. My name is Mary Shaquin, a member of the League of Women Voters and your moderator for this forum. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan political organization which envisions a democracy where every person has the desire, the right, the knowledge, and the confidence to participate. In these new times, we do not have an audience, but Verde Valley TV is videotaping the forum for us. The video will play on Cable 1, Channel 56, Suddenlink Channel 2, and the Verde Valley TV YouTube channel, as well as other social media outlets and websites. The purpose of this forum is for the audience to get to hear from the candidates on why they want to be mayor of Sedona. Over the past several weeks, we have solicited and gathered questions via email from the public to present to the candidates. The goal of this forum is fairness, civility, and engagement. Our timekeeper for today's forum is Mary Gassaway. Her role is to keep us on time. She will have 3 signs, a 1-minute sign, a 30-second sign, and a stop sign. She will raise the 1-minute sign, then the 30-second sign, and then the stop sign, and that gives you the time to finish a sentence. Time limits will be enforced, and I, as moderator, will end the conversation if someone doesn't adhere to the stop sign. We ask 4 things of the candidates. We ask you to be respectful of each other's points of view, to speak your mind freely, to not engage in personal attacks, and to not interrupt each other. Our candidates for the mayor of the City of Sedona in alphabetical order are Kurt Gehlbach and Sandy Moriarty. This forum will be divided into 3 parts. The first part will begin with opening remarks and a League of Women Voters and then a Sedona Chamber question. Each candidate will have 3 minutes for introductory remarks. This will then be followed by 3 minutes to respond to the League of Women Voters Greater Verde Valley question, followed by 3 minutes to respond to the question from the Sedona Chamber of Commerce and Tourism Bureau. Part 2 consists of questions from the community. Candidates will have 2 minutes to address each question, depending upon the number of issues to be covered. We received more than 50 questions in response to our requests. I invite the community to contact the candidates directly if your questions were not answered or if you would like further information. And finally, each candidate will have 2 minutes for closing remarks. I would like to now begin with opening statements. These were drawn by number. The first individual to give opening statement will be Kurt Gehlbach, and he has 3 minutes. Kurt.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
My name is Kurt Gehlbach. I'm a 24-year resident of Sedona. When I was born in Phoenix, Arizona. My grandfather was one of the founding companies of Scottsdale, La Solana Pottery. As a child, we would come up to Sedona because he had contracts with the artists, and my father would deliver the ceramics to the artists, and that's when Sedona captured my heart. And from that point on, spent much time up here. 24 years ago when I arrived, the first person I actually spent time with, it was fun to run into him, was John Conway, the assistant chief of the fire department, who recruited me onto the fire department. And then from there got my real estate license, started developing, started working in real estate, and working for other companies also. I like to do a mixed match of many, many different things. So I'm a businessman who's been here for 24 years, and I love Sedona. That's it.
Great, thank you. Sandy?
Thank you. I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters and the Sedona Chamber of Commerce for sponsoring this forum. And good afternoon, everyone. I'm Sandy Moriarty, and I've had the honor and privilege of serving as mayor of Sedona for over 5 years, and the pleasure of living in Sedona for more than 48 years. I got involved in getting Sedona incorporated soon after my arrival in January of 1972. It was a special challenge because we're in 2 counties, so we had to begin with changing state law to allow incorporation across county lines. Nearly 16 years later, after a successful December 1987 election, Sedona officially became a city on January 4th, 1988, and I was excited and proud to be a member of the first appointed city council. Governing in Sedona has significantly changed over the years, but never in the way it has changed in the last 4 months. I believe there's never been a time in the 32 years Sedona has been incorporated when an emergency proclamation has been issued. My emergency proclamation was first issued in mid-March and has been updated twice, most recently to include a mandate to require every person within the city to wear masks, with some exceptions. The global pandemic of COVID-19 has resulted in unusual and extraordinary times and brought more uncertainty from an invisible and unpredictable enemy than most of us have experienced in our lifetimes. As conditions change dramatically, daily, even hourly, it is a challenge to keep up and adjust. But we are innovative and resilient, and I know we will get through this together and emerge even stronger on the other side. Our goals for the city remain largely the same, although the path to reach them and the time frame may change somewhat as we focus on public health and safety now even more than ever. Because we have budgeted wisely in the past, our financial health is good, so we can move ahead with city operations and functions. We will continue implementing our master transportation plan. The climate action plan is moving ahead, economic diversification programs continue, and we are not anticipating layoffs or furloughs. When the legislature reconvenes in 2021, we will continue to advocate for changes to allow for local control of short-term rentals. We intend to proceed cautiously as time goes on, and as we all adjust to ever-changing circumstances, this is a unique opportunity for learning and adapting in ways we might never have imagined. I have often seen and been proud of what generous and giving a community that Sedona is. And our love for Sedona and each other will bring us through this pandemic. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandy. The first question will be from the League of Women Voters, and Sandy, you will answer this first. The candidates also were provided this question in advance. What is your perspective on racial equity and community policing as it related to Sedona and the Verde Valley? We asked individuals to also consider how would you describe the relationship between local police and police of color in Sedona and the Verde Valley? What actions will you take to ensure police treat people equitably? What would be your response to evidence of wrongdoing? And finally, how do you think citizens at Sedona can act locally and positively to address the serious issue of racial equity? Sandy.
Thank you. The Declaration of Independence states that all men are created equal and have certain unalienable rights. This statement was made by a group of all white male landowners. And there's no mention of race. The first African slaves were brought to our shores in 1619, and slavery became institutionalized, only ended officially by the end of the Civil War. Unfortunately, the end of the war did not bring an end to racial discrimination and racism. The difference between racial prejudice and racism is the lack of any power structure weighted in favor of a particular race. Systemic racism continued to develop and became deeply integrated in American society in many ways, which are often ignored or go unrecognized. While strides have been made toward racial equality or equity, we are a long ways from ending systemic racism. Recently, the killing of George Floyd by police officers has brought the issue to the forefront, and I am encouraged by what appears to be an interest in making significant legislative changes to move us forward on that front. It has also brought attention to the strategy of community policing, which employs the elements of positive interaction, partnerships, and problem solving. Community policing has been employed by Sedona and other Verde Valley communities for many years, and it is a common practice among small communities across the nation. I have spoken with Sedona's police chief, Charles Husted, both about community policing and also about use of force policies. Since he's relatively new to Sedona, he told me that he is in the final stages of reviewing all of the department's policies. And he confirmed that all Verde Valley police departments use Spectrum Healthcare's crisis team when needed to address mental health and behavioral issues encountered by police officers. The Spectrum team offers a service which is usually unaffordable as a part of a small town police department. From him and from the many governmental meetings I have attended, I also know that de-escalation techniques and training are employed across the Verde Valley. I believe we can all benefit by examining our own perceptions and attitudes about race, and by having what are likely to be difficult conversations with family and friends about how we perceive and treat people with different racial backgrounds. Thank you.
You know, that's a fascinating question. Let me start with the police department. Years ago, I became involved politically within Sedona, sitting on various committees and commissions, Historical Preservation Commission the last 6 years. The police department I've been dealing with because of signs all over town, and been meeting with many of them of different backgrounds, ethnicity, color. I really love them. They are always looking for a solution. And the other day when I was out among many that were at the city council meeting, they knew each and every person and had great rapport with them. So I think our police department personally is fantastic. When I look at racial discrimination, and I'm going to pause because, you know, I grew up in a household of a Christian family. So when we looked upon anyone, we looked at their heart, we looked into their eyes, we didn't see their skin color. And so for me to approach anybody, I'm approaching them with love. And this is something that our nation is not paying attention to, and we're being divided by this. One of the dreams I have for Sedona is to ask everyone to set aside their differences and come together so that we can bring Sedona into the future together. Racial discrimination, I'm not seeing in Sedona at the moment. I have not witnessed that at all yet. We're seeing it all over the nation. When I was in Africa, I spent some time with people there and realized when Mandela went up to speak to the masses after he was out of prison, he spoke of forgiveness, and it changed that nation. That nation is full of forgiveness, they're full of love, they're smiling, joyful, and I would love to be able to bring that into our city and into our nation. But it's going to take a lot of work for everyone to set aside their differences, look at each other's hearts, bring God's love in, and become one as family. With regards to, may I ask the other question there, really quick? Police department.
What would do in response to evidence of wrongdoing?
Well, with wrongdoing, we want to investigate, obviously.
And then how do you think citizens of Sedona can act locally and positively to address the serious issue of racial equity?
Well, and when you look at Sedona, we're at obviously a higher education level, and I'm not witnessing people that are even thinking about discrimination in that respect. In fact, they're even reaching out to those who are homeless, and they're reaching out to others who are in need. And I do see a lot of that. I think Sedona is a very, very unique place. But one of the things with regards to racial discrimination, we just need to learn to love one another and pay attention to that and make some changes ourselves. Thanks.
Thank you. Our next question is from the Sedona Chamber of Commerce. There will be 3 minutes for this question, and Kurt, you will start on this, okay? So let me start by reading the question. In the most recent National Citizen Survey, 90% of residents rated the city as an excellent or good place to live. Now, as a result of the coronavirus pandemic, Sedona's economy, businesses, employees, events, and city have suffered grievously. The cost in dreams dashed, family finances depleted, school or career plans postponed or obliterated simply cannot be calculated. Pre-COVID, our most critical industry, tourism, was on target to generate $20 million in revenues for the city. For example, 77% of city sales tax collections, which pays for essential services residents need and provides 10,000 area jobs. Now this has been severely damaged. The questions related to this: what are your views of the Chamber's efforts to balance quality of life, the environment, and tourism? If your view is positive, what do you specifically like about the Chamber's direction? Or if your view is negative, how do you intend to safeguard revenues to maintain quality of life services, businesses, and jobs?
Very good question. I haven't had a chance to sit in on any of the marketing meetings with the Chamber, yet when you look at our economy now, from a business standpoint, I'm not sure if the Chamber's actually sat with every business owner and their marketing teams to literally talk about where our economy is going and how we're going to be rebound as we work through this. When you look at the consumer now, they're basically looking at trust. And when you're in buying something of $2,000 and your face is covered, that trust is something that we have to deal with. But then again, this economy and every citizen has really been damaged financially. The economy itself has, you're talking about 20 million, that kind of confuses me. I thought Sedona was more like 10 million, but then again, let's just look at the situation. Once people come back and start wanting to shop, now that's going to be interesting because they're not going to be shopping like they used to. They're going to be looking at service industry and clothing and such, which has taken a huge hit with regards to purchasing and people out there buying. If we do not cater towards their trust levels, if we do not cater towards what they're looking at these days, which are stores that are within your city or within your community, family and such, we're going to even suffer more. So we need to market things differently. We need to look at how each store is running this day or these days, and also come together as a community to move forward. Now, with regards to the Chamber, I've never been in a community before where the Chamber has so much control. I've never been in a community before where the Chamber takes $3 million to do a marketing program, and it's been given to them when we're running ourselves right into a financial crisis. Personally, I'd be holding on to every penny at the moment and then taking a good look at everybody's marketing programs. But then again, I would make sure that we brought every single business together along with the Chamber and then had these discussions so that way we together can move this forward and understand economically what's best for the city itself. This is going to be very, very difficult times, but I also don't agree with city manager going out and spending $300,000 over appraised value for 2 properties when we're running ourselves right into a very, very serious financial issue in the future. Hope I've answered those questions. I'm out of time.
Okay, thank you. Sandy.
Thank you. I've had the opportunity to work with the Chamber for many years, particularly in my role as mayor. I especially appreciate their efforts to partner with the city and in taking the lead to create the Sustainable Tourism Plan, which seeks to balance the elements of quality of life, the environment, and tourism. Most of us came here as tourists. I know I did. And it's important to recognize that tourism is our major economic driver. It provides a revenue stream which allows us to fund both essential functions, such as the transportation plan strategies now underway, and sustainability efforts, including our climate action plan, and the amenities that we all enjoy, including, and sometimes they're taken for granted, but including such as parks and recreation programs for both children and adults, and contract funding for the Sedona Library, the Humane Society of Sedona, Sedona Recycles, the Community Center, Verde Valley Caregivers, and our annual Small Grants Program, which is open to area nonprofits providing services to residents. When the COVID-19 pandemic hit Sedona, the Chamber joined me in requesting visitors to postpone their trips to Sedona. during the busiest time of the year when the governor issued his stay-home order. When the stay-home order was over and lifted, the chamber created the Sedona Safe, Clean, Ready campaign, providing signs, stickers, and guidelines to be followed by participating businesses. That program and its branding was shared with other Verde Valley cities and towns at no cost to them. They also supported my updated emergency proclamation, which mandated the wearing of masks in the city, and they are now creating further branding to get that message out to the public. The chamber created the Sedona Trail Keepers program, which raises hundreds of thousands of dollars to help add to and sustain the extensive network of trails in and around the Sedona area, in partnership with the city and the Forest Service. The trail system is one of the primary assets which benefits both locals and visitors, allowing all to access the great natural beauty which makes Sedona the most beautiful place on earth. In supporting the business community, the chamber brings businesses to Sedona that you might not find in other communities our size. Among those businesses are the Mary Fisher Theater, the many galleries, and the artists who are such an integral part of our city, allowing us to say in our mission statement that we truly are a city animated by the arts. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandy. For all the next questions, we will have 2 minutes per question, and Sandy, this will come to you first. The Tourism Bureau's efforts to attract an affluent, multi-night visitor and to manage the area's 3 million visitors are funded through bed taxes. Do you support the use of bed taxes this way? Yes or no, and why or why not?
Yes, I do support the use of bed taxes. It isn't all of the bed tax, incidentally. And the bed tax is one component of the general sales tax, which is also levied along with the bed tax. And that does not go to the chamber. And it's based on that roughly. So repeat the second part of the question, please.
Do you support the use of bed taxes this way? Why or why not? Let me read the whole question.
Yes, because, well, that's okay. It was just that latter part. I do support the use of bed tax for it. After all, it's the lodging industry that creates bed tax. We don't get it from anywhere else except from the lodging industry in Sedona. So I think it's reasonable to use part of that tax. And again, it's not the whole thing, to help support that business and to attract the kind of visitors that we need in Sedona, who are going to stay several nights and are likely to spend money in all our businesses in Sedona.
Thank you.
Could you read that one more time, please?
I would be happy to. The Tourism Bureau's efforts to attract an affluent, multi-night visitor and to manage the area's 3 million visitors are funded through bed taxes. Do you support the use of bed taxes in this way? Yes or no? Why or why not?
Interesting question. I'm starting to relax finally.
Good.
You know, I see Sedona's referral business not existing, which is the reason why we're doing so much marketing to get them all back. And what I'm seeing is Sedona needs to become an archetype for the world to be educated from. Sedona can create outstanding business models with all the residents coming together that would literally set us aside. Now, when you're talking about this money being used for all of this, I would want to reevaluate everywhere every penny is going, everywhere, and see where that money can go to better Sedona and the residents. Because every time we talk about money and we talk about cutting budgets, the first thing they say is, and this is the chamber and the council, well, we're going to cut in services. And the residents are very upset about that. I would want to see where we're going to be taking from this point on. I would want to manage where every single penny is going to be going. So, you know, and I see Sedona in a whole different way. I see Sedona as a place that we could be attracting all different income levels, yet I know why they're attracting the higher income levels. They want to see the money spent. But the idea, too, is to not only attract them, but retain them. and then manage the tourism all over the city with a wonderful hop-on, hop-off transportation system, bring back our music venues, and bring back the things with regards to culture, art, and everything else that we have literally let go over the years. When you take the Red Rocks away from Sedona, what do we have? I wouldn't want to come back unless I was hiking or biking or wanting to climb the mountains, because there's really not much else. So, nope, I got to stop. Jeez. All right, I'll stop.
All right, the next question. And Kurt, you'll be up first on this. Cities and towns throughout the Verde Valley have a tradition of working together in such endeavors as the Verde Valley Regional Economic Organization, VV-RIO, Northern Arizona Council of Governments, NACOG, and the Arizona League of Cities and Towns, just to cite a few examples. Do you see a shared vision for the cities and towns of the Verde Valley in 2020? If so, please describe that shared vision.
Wow, that's an interesting question. I don't know if we would have a shared vision. It's pretty interesting because every city is different. Now, can you define that a little bit further? Shared vision? No? So, all right, so then again, I still see Sedona as a leader. Now, if everyone else wants to hop on board, excellent, because what I would like to do with the residents of Sedona is to create transportation systems, is to create the archetypes, is to create those things to literally bring people from all over the world, and most of all, community. Our city council and let's just say our elected officials, we haven't created any community events in quite some time, and so community is going to be extremely important. When I was a child, we were out playing, having fun, with friendships that to this day I could rely on them for anything. I would want to work with everybody, obviously, but I still see Sedona as a leader in the future, and I would love everyone else to hop on board and be part of this.
Thank you. Sandy.
Would you repeat the question?
Certainly. Cities and towns throughout the Verde Valley have a tradition of working together in such endeavors as the Verde Valley Regional Economic Organization, VV-RIO, Northern Arizona Council of Governments, NACOG, and the Arizona League of Cities and Towns, just to cite a few examples. Do you see a shared vision for the cities and towns of the Verde Valley in 2020? If so, describe that shared vision.
Thank you. Yes, we do, in fact, work through all those organizations, and they're all very important. And we do have many intergovernmental meetings, especially in the Verde Valley, but we have them throughout the whole region, even Northern Arizona. There are many organizations like that. And we don't always share the exact same vision, but we do work together because we're a community of 10,000. The whole Verde Valley is a population of about between 70 and 75,000. We really need to work together, and we've always done it, and we've done it really cooperatively and with great respect and friendliness. And we can all benefit each other. Sedona provides most of the lodging facilities for the Verde Valley, but the Verde River is a critical point and a great recreation source for the Verde Valley, and it's wonderful to spread that tourism around the whole Verde Valley. So yes, although we may not share the exact same vision, we definitely work together to complement each other and work together on what can benefit all of us.
Thank you. Sandy, this will be for you next. We recognize that you have lived in Sedona long enough to know there are things that you like and things you would change about living here. Obviously, you have shared some of your views during this campaign, so we would like to probe a little further. When did you begin living in Sedona, and what brought you here? What 3 things do you like best about living in Sedona, and what 3 things would you like to change about Sedona, and why?
Well, I've already addressed what brought me here. I came, like most people, as a tourist. And that was a very long question, and I did not take notes. But let's see. So So what brought me here? Could you remind me what the rest of it is?
Sure. What three things do you like best about living in Sedona?
Okay.
And what three things would you like to change about Sedona and why?
Well, of course, we all love the fantastic scenery and the surroundings here. It creates a very peaceful environment for the most part. And you can really get out into the wilderness and into the backcountry if you want, or you can just hike a fairly short trail or visit a gallery or do so many things that we have to do. And so I love that about Sedona. And I certainly love the people in Sedona, because we like to say Sedona is the most beautiful place on earth in so many ways. And I always like to say the people are one of those many ways. We have wonderful residents and citizens all over the Verde Valley, and I love that. I like just being in a small community more than in a big city, I guess. And so Sedona's ideal, and we have one thing that no big city has, and that's fantastic dark skies. And we have preserved them. We are a member of the International Dark Sky City Association, and all of our development standards include ways to preserve those fabulous dark skies. Three things I don't like about it. Well, frankly, there isn't a whole lot I don't like about it. I guess if you're a person who likes to shop, you may not be able to find everything you want in Sedona. I just don't have that problem. I guess I don't. I'm not a big shopper. What else don't I like? I can't think of a lot I don't like.
Okay, thank you. Kurt.
Why did I come to Sedona? It's because I love Sedona. It's a place I was always coming to as a child. I love the people in Sedona and everything as far as the outdoors and such. And plus I heard that God created the Grand Canyon but lives in Sedona. So that was another reason. Everyone knows my passion because I'm always out talking to everybody. I'm in Uptown, Tlaquepaque, everywhere you can imagine where people are congregating, because I want to know what people are thinking. I want to know how they feel. And I just enjoy the people in our city. The three things that I would change, oh my, only three. First of all, I want my community. I love community. When I was part of the fire department, we had community. Lonnie Lilly and I had a discussion about this at at the chamber budget meeting, how much we miss community. I want that back. Two, got to get rid of this traffic and decide how we're going to manage the traffic and some of the business models that we've been creating. And I always say we want the traffic outside of the city so we can better manage the traffic. And number three, music venues. I want my music venues back, but then again, manage the decimal levels. But also have a hop-on, hop-off transportation system that people can get around and enjoy themselves, and we can help retain them even more within the city, spending the revenues and then using those revenues based off the business models to generate around the city to take care of those who need help, those who need subsidized, and most of all, our elderly, because they're going to be progressing through life. And I did the same thing for my mother. I created a business model of building spec homes so I could increase her bottom line. So when she progressed through into assisted living, I had her taken care of, which we used it, and I subsidized her. But I want to take care of everyone, and I'm out of time again.
Okay, Kurt, you're up next on this one. The emergence of the COVID-19 pandemic has created change in many facets in our daily lives. What do you see as the new normal for Sedona? Do you expect things to return to pre-COVID reality? Are there changes that have become increasingly apparent to you as a result of this pandemic? What are two or three of these changes, and how will you address them?
Wow, this COVID thing just really created some fear within everybody. I was able to get out and gather 200 signatures before the COVID, but people were still staying inside, and that worried me because a lot of our elderly who are cooped up in their house, it's not healthy. So that's one of the things I want to be able to change. But post-COVID, it's going to be a completely different world because of the fear factor, the trust with regards to governments, trust with regards to many other things. So we all need to come together to really take a good look at this. This is going to be extremely important. We want to get together to take a good look at where everyone is, not only financially, but where their fear factor is and their trust level is. So post-COVID, I think it's a great opportunity to redirect the city, to get us back on possibly a different track to where now we're going to be offering things for those, or let's just say many things, for people to come on in. They'll have the trust, because what I would love to see most is through this community, we're going to show people not only how to trust one another, but how to love one another and bring them all together, and hopefully they'll take it home with them and start it somewhere else. But it will be different. But it's a great opportunity to redirect the city, create the business models that we can come together to create, and then move forward from there.
Great, thank you. Sandy.
Yes, so what is the new normal going to be like? Well, first of all, it's a ways away. COVID is a serious public health condition that we're not going to get through quickly. The coronavirus is a very deadly, and it is a novel virus, and that means we don't have any natural immunity to it. And so we have to try to control it the best we can until we develop either not a cure, but treatments or a vaccine. That's what we've done with past influenzas, and that's what the only thing that was anything like what we're going through now was the 1918 flu pandemic. But this is not a flu. Make no mistake about it, it is not a flu. It's a coronavirus. They are different. They behave differently, and it's not only a respiratory disease, we're learning that it's a blood disease, but because it's new, it will take, I'm guessing, a year to 18 months, possibly 2 years to get to the point where we can effectively control or treat the virus. So it's a long time. However, in the meantime, we have measures we can take to control it, and that's part of what I did with the mask ordinance, the mask proclamation. And I think we'll be back to, when we come back, we will be all working more often remotely, which is a good thing in many ways. It'll keep more cars off the road because people won't be commuting into work. And we've learned that during the pandemic. It's taught us we can work quite well remotely. It's difficult for gatherings because we can't have large gatherings until we're in a better place. Right now, Arizona is spiking in cases for sure. And it's going to be some time before we get through it. I'm not sure how much time I have left, so I could talk for a long time on this topic.
I'm sorry you have to end. The next question.
Well, I'm through. I'll put it right there.
Okay, perfect. The next question, Sandy. What lessons have you learned from the global pandemic that makes you an effective leader in the city of Sedona?
Well, I've learned that we have to learn about the pandemic. We have to learn about the virus. I spend a lot of time keeping up with the developments regarding the virus. And we, of course, are meeting fairly often, with regional people and agencies. The Verde Valley cities meet, touch base once or twice a week, so everybody knows where we all are. Not everyone is on board with the mask proclamation, but 4 out of the 5 Verde Valley cities are. I have always known that relationships are an important part of governing, no matter what. They're especially important now, even more than they were before. And I've learned that it's even more important to work together at times like this. And as I said, we understand now many things we didn't really see before, and remote work is one of them. We would not have gone to the level of remote work or even thought we could. And now we realize we can. And as I said, it may be better for the environment. So that's certainly one thing I've learned. I've also learned that there's a lot of divisiveness in this community over this issue. But I was happy to see that there seemed to be a lot of general agreement on the mask issue. And we took the time to listen to what it was, and to also give the council members time to weigh in on what they thought about it, because the proclamation is mine alone. You can blame me for it. I take full accountability. It is an emergency situation.
You have 30 seconds.
I have a feeling I'm out of time, so I'm going to stop.
Thank you.
Question again?
Kurt, the question again is, what lessons have you learned from the global pandemic that makes you an effective leader for the city of Sedona?
Interesting thing, the being out all over the city, I speak to so many people, and wow, the emotions are everywhere. But I can tell you the majority of them didn't want to wear a mask. They didn't want to have to be made to wear a mask. Yet when we started discussions, we were talking about the age demographics and different subject matters. Back in January, I believe it was, I started doing research on this because it started making progress throughout our country and the world. And I like doing my research. So I do research by calling a number of hospitals, Flagstaff. I called down into Phoenix. I talked to a number of physicians. And when you watch the physicians, every time you'd walk into one of their offices, they would check your temperature. You would have a mask on. They would make you wash your hands before you even come on in, just to keep everybody safe. I'm one who was stubborn. I don't like wearing the mask. I have a deviated septum, and it just made it harder for me to breathe. And so, but then again, as an ex-firefighter, I also would assess everybody, including myself, and then I would make sure that I did distance, that I did go to areas where maybe too many people weren't, and if I was within crowds, I would wear the mask. Now, recently, or even long before, it was around March, I believe, people are asking me, what would you do? So I started writing to them as to what I would do. Worst case scenario, I would check temperatures coming into the city and make sure everybody had the little pamphlet saying, here's what you want to do. So that way we could assess. People said, well, what about the line that you would create? And I said, what line? It's already there. We have plenty of lines of traffic. We're not going to slow a thing down. That was worst case scenario. Yet within the city, we could have taken much earlier preventative measures to make sure that everybody took care of themselves in the stores, and that they, if they needed to, cover their mask, especially if they didn't feel comfortable. But with regards to all of those who are elderly and those who are immune deficient, because I've spoken to many who are, I would wear a mask in closer areas where you have a lot of people out of respect for them. And I have no problem with that whatsoever. And as we talked earlier, fear factor. I don't want anyone having to run around in total fear or not able to come out of their house in fear. Stop. Okay. No, that's okay. I'm good.
Okay, you're up next on this one. What is your position on the proposed reduction of emergency services by Northern Arizona Healthcare? What have you done, or what will you do to persuade Northern Arizona Health not to abandon the emergency department for an urgent care facility? What are your views on a comprehensive cancer center in Sedona? And how will you address this important community health need?
Wow. It's crucial to have them continue in business, especially when you look at our demographics. So something that happened the other day, it was the 15th actually, an ambulance got stuck in Uptown because of the bit of a conundrum that's been created up there. And an actual ambulance was stuck in traffic, blaring their horn, and you've got someone in there who is in need of medical help. So you have that golden hour. Now, if they are stuck and need to get to Flagstaff or need to go all the way to Cottonwood, then now we're risking their life. So we need to have our facilities in place. We need to make sure that they're funded. And that's another reason for the business models. The business models are created to generate millions of dollars a year. That money can now subsidize other locations within the city that are in need. And that is one location that I believe we must keep open for the benefit of everyone, especially as a cancer center. I don't think people with cancer are going to want to drive to Cottonwood or Flagstaff and then have to drive home. That's not only dangerous for them, it's dangerous for others if they're on the road after treatment and if they don't have someone literally driving for them. Did I answer all the questions?
You did.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Sandy?
Thank you. I do think the emergency room is an important part of Sedona. It is not going to be closed. The most that they were considering was changing it to more of an urgent care center, as they've monitored the kinds of calls that they have there. And while some people may consider something an emergency, it really is more of an urgent care situation. So they are not closing their doors. I have spoken with the chief administrator of the Cottonwood Hospital, and he has let me know that that's not the goal. I don't think this is a great time anyway to be looking at it, and I don't think they intended actually that anyone be concerned about it. They were looking at the longer term about what they might do, but somehow, you know how rumors are in Sedona, it got out that this was being contemplated. And I have assured many people that they are not closing their doors immediately, which they are not. I know they are not. The Cancer Center, I'm sure, would be a great asset for the Verde Valley, but we do not need to close, and they are not going to close. They have said in no uncertain terms, it was even on the front page of the Red Rock News, that they are not leaving Sedona. It's just they are considering possibly changing the level of care. What else was there another question?
No, I think you covered it all, Sandy.
Okay.
Thank you. Sandy,
Thank
the
you.
next
We're
question.
continuing to stay in touch with them.
Thank you. The next question to you is, what is your approach to managing traffic issues in Sedona? What is your opinion of the current traffic study and plan and how it is being implemented?
Well, that's a major question. And of course, the study and the plan are something we have approved of as a council. And so I do approve of it. There are 12 different strategies plus 2 very long-term strategies that are not on the table at this moment. And it's a variety. I can't describe it in 2 minutes, I assure you. But it is available on our website. We have completed the very first phase, which is the uptown improvements. Well, we're not quite complete, but it's very, very close. And we're also doing some drainage improvements, I noticed, not too far from where I live, that are due to reach completion in June. So, but in terms of the traffic, the strategies are designed to mitigate traffic. There is no silver bullet. There never will be. The best way to control traffic is to get cars off the road. And I will tell you, the pandemic was very effective at doing that and the shutdown order. Incidentally, we didn't do more earlier because the governor prevented the city from taking any action on its own until they gave us permission to deal with the mask issue. We are not allowed to do anything that he doesn't allow us to do. So that's why we didn't do any more earlier. In terms of the strategies, as I say, the uptown thing is nearly complete. We're looking at situations at the Y for slip lanes. We are in the design phase of both a new road from the uptown neighborhoods directly to 89A, and for the Forest Road, that's under design, and so is the underpass in front of Tlaquepaque. That's something that I know will help traffic, but it's not easy to describe the whole thing in 2 minutes. I fully support the 12 strategies, and they will help a great deal. Transit, by the way, is one of them, but that's expensive and long-term too.
Thank you.
Question again, please.
What is your approach to managing traffic issues in Sedona? What is your opinion of the current traffic study and plan and how it is being implemented?
So Sedona in Motion has been failing for quite some time. I would want to get the city together, the residents, and rewrite that, reestablish Sedona in Motion. I believe I can work with what is going on right now with this. And what's fascinating is I was talking to friends of mine in Massachusetts. Massachusetts is taking out all their roundabouts because they have found over the years that they are failing also and that they are creating problems. So it's interesting to kind of look at these various studies all over the country and to see a state like Massachusetts who's been using roundabouts for years and years now saying, we're getting rid of them. So I'm not quite sure about these roundabouts. When you look at Uptown, I sat up there when there were no cars. And I thought, oh, this is nice. I want this like this all the time. So that's when I put online a trackless tram system that's all electric, no emissions whatsoever. When you look at the city right now, what they're doing is they're saying, okay, let's try to manage our traffic, and they're taking them around and bringing them back through. And then they want to put 500 cars in the middle of Uptown in 2 different parking hubs worth around $11.5 million each. Then they want to become part of a program through the mayors of the nation to cut the carbon footprint down. So it's a bit hypocritical, and it doesn't make sense to me. If we're going to work towards a sustainable, and I mean, and I know how the city dislikes that word, if we're going to look more towards a whole sustainable city, to cut that carbon footprint and to bring in, say, systems that are going to be carbon-free or emissions-free, then we need to have a better plan, and we need to take a good look at those things that are going to work as far as transportation. And that's why I said, let's get the other cities on board, because when you look at this tram system and such, we could run it all over the place. It would be fantastic. Time. So I'm not happy with the way things are going with the traffic issue, with the Sedona in Motion, with the plan for what they're doing uptown. And I don't believe the store owners in them are being heard, because they're all worried about the trees growing too tall and the fact that people are jaywalking and getting stuck in the middle, and not to mention our emergency transportation services stuck in traffic also. Time out.
Okay. Sedona identifies as a community animated by the arts and is home to a wonderful variety of cultural events and opportunities that need the support of their public and their government. Similar to other cities in Arizona, such as Mesa, Tempe, and Scottsdale, that are art destinations and actively support arts-based economic development in their communities, would you favor an arts tax in Sedona, or using lodging tax revenue to support the arts? Why or why not?
Oh, I definitely use the lodging tax to help the arts. I mean, when I walk around Sedona and I try to go anywhere at night, all I can think of is boring. There's not, we've literally declined in our arts, in our entertainment. It's all declined. Yet I believe that, it's time to spread the love a little bit, but that's a point that we need to bring all of the residents together and ask them that same question and see what they feel about that. But I believe that it is time to start supporting the arts here, because it's not supported enough. I mean, on the Historical Preservation Commission, we're doing our best to create historic walks just to try to generate people around and get them down into our arts area and get them over into the historical areas and such. So did I answer that question? I mean, I get a bit excited about this, but I really believe that it is time to redirect some of these funds and redirect them into those areas that are going to bring back community, bring back our arts, bring back our entertainment, bring back the things that are going to bring back the tourism for referral business, so we don't have to spend so much money on marketing each year.
Great, thank you. Sandy.
I'm not sure I can remember that entire question, but I think it has to do with instituting a tax that would, read it again, because would it benefit the arts, or would it be on artists?
Let me read the question for you again, Sandy. Yes, Sedona identifies as a community animated by the arts and is home to a wonderful variety of cultural events and opportunities that need the support of their public and their government. Similar to other cities in Arizona, such as Mesa, Tempe, and Scottsdale, that are arts destinations and actively support arts-based economic development in their communities, would you favor an arts tax in Sedona, or using lodging tax revenue to support the arts? Why or why not?
I could not hear the end of that question. I'm sorry, but I'm going to answer it anyway. I think I remember enough of it. An arts tax, you'd have to define an arts tax before I would know whether or not I support it. And it may sound like a great idea. It's not an easy thing to do. I'm not sure how you would accomplish that. There are laws in place about doing those things. So I can't really answer the arts tax part of it. In terms of using the bed tax, I think we already are doing that in some ways. Sedona is actually very supportive of its arts community. And I just don't know that you're going to take money away from somebody else to give it to someone else. So we've done our budget for the year. We are involved in a pandemic right now, which is a public health crisis. And so many of the events and that sort of thing are not going to be around for a while because we are a long way, believe me, from having crowds of, right now we're limited to 10, groups of 10, not too much you can do with that. So we had a very vibrant arts community. We still do, like other businesses, they're hurting along with everybody else. I think I'm just going to stop there.
Thank you. Okay, Sandy, you're up on this next one.
Okay.
Current and future development in the Verde Valley is most likely inevitable. Some residents are concerned about the current and future supplies of water and the health of our aquifers. What are your thoughts on this issue, and how are officials in the Verde Valley communities and Yavapai County kept abreast of local water supplies?
Water is a major issue in Arizona as a whole. It always has been. Obviously, we're pretty much a desert. Even in the high country, we're a type of desert. And so water is critical. We have Oak Creek and the Verde River, which are perpetually flowing bodies of water. But we are not big enough to be an active management area. So it is difficult, but I do belong to an organization called the Verde Front. And also a group that's a kind of a branch of that and the Nature Conservancy, who looks at sustaining flows in the Verde River, which is critical, absolutely critical to life here in the Verde Valley. No one values that more than our Native American communities here. And so we are always looking at it. And NACOG, a regional organization, NACOG that was mentioned earlier, we partners on water issues. We're always looking at water issues, and they're discussed constantly, regionally, statewide, countywide, everything. So we do keep an eye on that, and the Department of Environmental Quality, and there's a water, state level department for water also. They're the ones that keep track of it, but there are many ways that water in the Verde is measured. And while there are rules regarding surface water, there are no rules regarding groundwater, which astounded me when I learned that. So we're very careful about who we give water rights from the Verde or any other surface water body to, but we don't do anything about how much we pump out. It's something we really have to keep an eye on, and we are doing that. We definitely are doing that.
Thank you.
Question again, please.
Sure. Current and future development in the Verde Valley is most likely inevitable. Some residents are concerned about the current and future supplies of water and the health of the aquifers. What are your thoughts on this issue, and how are officials in the Verde Valley communities and Yavapai County kept abreast of local water supplies?
I don't think that anyone's keeping abreast to anything. It's the craziest thing, because through my research, I started looking into aquifer farming. Outside of Phoenix, east of Phoenix, Saudi Arabia bought a huge portion of land out there, and they are doing aquifer farming. And the reason why they bought that is because they drained their own system. So they are draining our systems now, our aquifers, for their own personal farming, and many people are not aware of that. So when I look at our water issue, the first thing I want to do is say, all right, who owns these water companies? Well, one of them is owned by California, et cetera. Why don't we own these water companies? Why don't we own our own water within aquifers, et cetera? This is a huge issue that we need to not watch. We need to address it, and we need to move on it, because the water is gold these days, and our replenishing of it is just not gonna work. So we need to really take advantage of this now, not wait, because what I just saw down there outside of Phoenix, it just blew my mind to think that another country's coming in here to drain our aquifers now, and that's not going to happen, not up here. So we do need to get together as a city, residents as a city, come together, decide where we want to create the revenues for this and start purchasing the water companies. I want our own water. We've got great aquifers, and we can now protect them, and I'll just go from there. Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you. Okay. What other municipal tools and partnerships would you actively engage to support Sedona's economic development via the performing and fine arts and humanities? Examples of these tools could include possible tax breaks, reduced fees, artist in residence, and student housing options, and cultivating a working relationship with the school district to improve utilization of the Sedona Performing Arts Center.
Yeah, that's very important. That's a beautiful arts center over there also. See, and that's part of these business models, because when we're in a city that could generate millions a year, and that's what surprises me about our city government. Our city government, over all these years, hasn't thought about creating their own business models to create their own revenue, and using that revenue to support the school systems, to support the homeless, the food banks, to support everything that we need to support. So with regards to the school, that I am worried about our schools. They're now dropping the football programs, some of the sports programs, and obviously we don't have families coming into the city because they can't afford to live here. So what would happen to our schools? I'm going to do everything I can to create revenue for them and to supplement them or subsidize them somehow. Did I answer that question?
Well, we're talking about the arts. What tools would you use to fund the arts? And
Well, that's part of our referral business and marketing program.
Okay.
So that would be very important also, because once create art programs also, but I want to attract people from all over the world for that. And in doing so, we increase our referral business and our revenue.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sandy.
Okay, would you repeat the question, please?
Certainly. What other municipal tools and partnerships would you actively engage to support Sedona's economic development via the performing and fine arts and humanities? Examples of those tools could be tax breaks, reduced fees, artist in residence, and student housing options, and cultivating a working relationship with the school district to improve utilization of the Sedona Performing Arts Center.
That's a major question and difficult to answer in a short period of time. Let me just address one of the things mentioned, and that is tax breaks. I'm never sure what people mean when they want tax breaks. We don't have property tax, so that takes away the possibility of offering tax breaks. We don't tax, we have sales tax, but are we going to exempt somebody? I mean, it's our main form of tax, so I doubt that. I think there are a number of ways we can handle this now, and we are handling economic development for the art community as well as the others. And we do give our small grants out to many arts-oriented organizations often. In terms of working with the school district, we do work with the school district in a number of ways, but they own the facility, and the school district is a separate taxing entity with their own governing board. So we're limited on what we can do to work with them.
Thank you. Next question, Sandy. When will the use of gray water become part of our preparedness for drought and lack of moisture? What plans, if any, are in place to allow the citizens of Sedona to use gray water on private property?
I wish I had the expertise to answer that. I really don't. I don't know that they can't do it now. To irrigate, I think you can.
Okay. Thank you.
I would have to do some research to answer that question.
Okay, thank you. Kurt.
Could you repeat that one more time?
Sure. When will the use of gray water become part of our preparedness for drought and lack of moisture? What plans, if any, are in place to allow the citizens of Sedona to use gray water on private property?
All right, I've got to say this before I say anything else. I don't have the answers to everything yet.
That's okay.
That's why I want to bring all the citizens together, because we've got brilliant minds in Sedona, and together we'll find these answers. Yet with the gray water, I'm all for that. I think people should be using gray water. I look at the 300 acres that the city has outside of the city here across from the sewage treatment plant, and I watch all that water being sprayed out there. So I went on to my Facebook page, Sedonas for Sedona, and I placed a business model there, which is a farm that I visited called Babylonsterin, 450 years old, taken from the Babylonian gardens, with 300 edible and medicinal plants. It was just a business model to help generate revenue and teach the world how to live a healthier lifestyle. Yet, that's an example of how I would use the gray water for something that is so beautiful, and to generate that water around creating lakes, ponds, and feeding everything. So, and obviously we're replenishing aquifers from what I'm understanding, et cetera. But with regards to that question specifically, yes, I think that's important that people do use the gray water for hopefully their own gardens at home.
Great, thank you. Next question, Kurt. The Sedona Community Plan states that sustainability is an inclusive and fundamental goal of the plan. What does that mean to you? What specific actions will you take to realize that goal? And what is your vision for sustainability in Sedona?
Well, that's what gets everybody upset, that word sustainability, because of the way it's been used. When I look at, and I'm not cutting anybody down here, but when I look at people using that word sustainability, let's say for marketing of Sedona, so sustainable tourism, I look at that as, okay, why are we having to sustain our tourism? That's so confusing to me. When we live in a city that has the capability of creating to attract the masses. In other words, we wouldn't have to put so much money into our sustainability for tourism, because we'd have that referral business, word of mouth, all over the world. I look at these options. Now, when you're looking at sustainability, well, I look at more of sustainability as whole sustainability. So how can we take care of our own? And that's why I keep talking about these business models. Sustainability, the farm I just talked about, 300 edible and medicinal plants, grown as organically as possible, and something for people to come and see, because they're going to want to. Guaranteed they're going to want to. But these are the types of models that I think is very important with regards to true sustainability. And by implementing things like a tram, and now just as an example, I'm not saying this is what we'll decide on, but as an example, the tram system, all electric, put it in a weekend. It's all magnetic strips. It can drive itself, but we'll put tour guides on there. So when you're creating an experience for people, and you bring them in and you're able to manage them, but at the same time offer them the culture, the arts, and everything that we should be offering them, then that word sustainable becomes more prevalent. Whereas right now, everyone's upset because they don't understand why we use that word, because we're not sustaining ourselves. We're not creating anything other than watching a conundrum of things being implemented. I'll just leave it right at that.
Okay, thank you. Sandy.
Okay, repeat the question, please.
Okay. The Sedona Community Plan states that sustainability is an inclusive and fundamental goal of the plan. What does that mean to you? What specific actions will you take to realize this goal? And what is your vision for sustainability in Sedona?
Okay, sustainability is definitely an underpinning of our community plan. It kind of just underlies everything. And it's not, by the way, I'd like to clarify one thing. The Sustainable Tourism Plan is not about sustaining tourism. It's about making tourism sustainable, meaning how can we improve the tourism activities to add to the city's sustainability. So how can we do more recycling? How can we do more waste reduction at our hotels? We have, for instance, one of the items in the sustainability plan, tourism plan, is siting water stations around where tourists are so that they can refill their water bottles instead of using disposable plastic bottles. Disposable plastic bottles and anything else that goes into the landfill needs to be those quantities need to be diminished. We need to reduce our waste, and the number one way we reduce waste is not to buy as much and to be careful what we buy that doesn't come in a lot of packaging that we then have to dispose of and put in the trash. So there are a number of things like that are related to the Sustainable Tourism Plan. Again, it's a massive document. You can look at it online. It's important to us at the city, and we've undertaken our own city sustainability plan so that we've put solar panels on the parking structures in the parking lot at City Hall. We have purchased our first electric vehicle. The whole transit idea is to keep traffic off the road. There are a number of ways that we're going about it, and it's important that we understand how to create sustainability starting with our own home environments and then extend it out. But the climate action plan is being done right now, and that is an important element of sustainability for the city. I have a feeling I'm out of time.
You are, and you fed right into that because my next question is about climate. The cost of climate disasters far outweighs the cost of preparing for climate change. Climate disaster includes fire danger, mega drought affecting food growth, hotter temperatures, heat island effects, heat-related deaths, drops in rangeland productivity by 80%, and mosquitoes now present every year. How will your leadership champion solutions for climate crisis in our community? What programs are you working on or proposing to address community needs in relation to climate that can be implemented? And how will you encourage and engage citizens to reduce the consumption of materials and energy?
And I assume that's for me. Is that my question? I can't
Yes, Sandy,
hear.
it is. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Well, as I just stated, we are working on a climate action plan. I understand the seriousness of climate change. I totally believe in climate change. Many people don't, but I do. And that's why we hired a sustainability coordinator who is working on the climate action plan. Citizens can participate. Again, the pandemic has affected this, but we are having virtual participation. There have been several open houses on the plan, and it is still in process. We are moving forward with it. 2 minutes is not long enough to me to answer all those questions. I totally understand the importance of it, but trying to get the public to accept it and make changes in their own lives that will help is difficult, no question. And we are doing our best to do that, and that will all be part of the climate action plan.
Thank you. Kurt.
One reason why I love the auditorium at the high school is because it's going to give us enough room to bring everybody in together. I think education is extremely important for everyone to be able to not only educate ourselves, but then to create a plan together. This city's full of brilliant minds, so I would want them coming together to create a plan. You know, when you talk about sustainability, and when you talk about whole sustainability has so many branches, so many leaves, so many different directions that we need to really take a good look at. I could go into great detail on this, yet that's one of the reasons why we create specific business models. For example, when you look at organic, it's sustainable, it's drought-proof, especially when you're using specific gray water. So that's just a portion in one step, but there's many other steps, and there's many cities that are far, far ahead of us. I lived in Davis, California, and boy, they're ahead of us on many things. Yet they're a city within a city within a city there. It's quite big, California. Whereas we're very unique. We're in our own little location. We have our water. We have all the resources that we need, but with cries of this climate, you know, Phoenix is heating up even more because they just keep putting in more roads. They keep putting in more of that black that's going to attract that heat along with additional building. So we would all need to come together, educate ourselves further, and take a good look at what would progress us forward with regards to that, to typical climate change that we're looking at. Now, you know, it's interesting when you talk about climate change also, because I was doing some research on water. Because of the dams, because of those who want so much water, they're actually causing our earth to tilt a bit. And it's fascinating to watch. But when you talk about climate change, it's all going to be affected because of different things and different factors. So that's another reason why everyone will come together, and then we'll just discuss this further. But that's a really good question. That's actually a tough one.
The community gave great questions.
Yeah.
Okay, the next question. What do you see as the 3 most important issues facing public education in the communities of the Verde Valley? How do you propose to address the issues you have identified in your role as mayor of Sedona?
The first part of that again, I'm sorry.
What do you see as the 3 most important issues facing public education in the communities of the Verde Valley?
Wow, here in our town, the first issue is, well, families can't afford to live here. Our enrollment is down. Our schools have started closing. That's the first. 3. Okay, now there's another really good question, because of course I'm not part of the school board or anything, but from what I am seeing, that's mostly the diminish of our students. They're not funded enough. And that's another reason why I wanted to subsidize them. A third one, well, I truly don't believe even the children. Now, this is another interesting thing. When you talk about the arts and music here, we have a lot of talented children who are within playing their own musical instruments, or they're part of a group or part of a whatever you want to call it. But I would like to be able to promote them also. But I see everything somewhat failing, and that's really sad. I don't know how else to answer that. That's a really tough question there. But hey, we'll all come together and we'll talk about that.
The curt solution. Sandy.
Yes, actually, education is not my specialty because I'm a member of the city council and not the school board. So I have not focused on that particular area. However, affordable housing is certainly one of the issues they face in recruiting teachers. And teacher pay is another major issue in this state. Our teachers are not well paid in Arizona. We're probably among the lowest, if not the lowest 2 or something like that for teacher pay. And the way the system is funded, and I'm not an expert to address that either, but there are definitely challenges on the funding. We have charter schools, that's been one approach. They're public schools, they do get public funding, but because schools are funded on a per capita basis when it comes to operating and maintenance expenses, and you start losing students, and it is very difficult to keep funding up, enough funding to do what you need to do. So I'd say the 3 issues are probably housing affordability, teacher salaries, and the system for funding the state schools.
Thank you. Sandy, this one is for you. The current pandemic has made us all more aware of the relationship between virus transmission and the processing of wild and factory farm animals for their meat. At the same time, access to quality, healthy food, especially for the most vulnerable, has become even more difficult. What role can city government play in helping residents make safe, sustainable food choices, either by ordinance or by example?
Well, I really would need more time to think about that. However, I don't think there's much we can do by ordinance that we aren't already doing. We did update our land development code, and it includes a number of green techniques. And we do allow certainly for farmers markets, which in the past farmers markets couldn't sell to commercial businesses. I believe they can now, so that's a good thing. I don't know really what else we could do. I've forgotten the first part of the question. Would you refresh?
Well, sort of what role can city government play in helping residents make safe, sustainable food choices, either by example or by ordinance?
I do think farmers markets are encouraging local agriculture is a good thing, and I think we do that. We have allowed, as I said, we've allowed farmers markets to operate. That's a good source of healthy food. The closer it grows to where you are, the better it is for you. So I think that's a good thing. And we have a farmers market here. We have given them special use permits to continue to operate, and we've made an effort to do that. We will continue to do that. That's certainly one thing we can do. We all try to eat healthier these days, I think. I think that's a good thing. A little more plant-based, even if it's not completely, we can all eat a bit more plant-based.
Great, thank you. Kurt.
Oh, great question, great question. So if you go on to my website, kurtforsedona.com, and you click on the little lines up on the right, you'll see some business models. One of them is Sedona Farms, I'm calling it for now. When you look at our 300 acres out here being fed by, or where they're spraying all the water, that's where they're grazing cattle. Now, obviously we have meat eaters and all of that, but when you look at the coronavirus and the various brands out there that are coming in, the channels of distribution have been cut off. So let's pretend that we're now in a drastic situation where all these channels have been cut off. We're not getting what we want. 18 million pounds of food annually can be grown out here on this 300 acres. So when you see the video on the Facebook page, Sedonans for Sedona, it'll give you a drone visual of the 300 edible and medicinal farm to educate everyone. Yet when you look out around that, you'll see more land that you can grow on. Same thing out here with the 300 acres. 18 million pounds of food. And when you're growing organically, you're looking at drought-free, you're looking at a situation where we could sustain ourselves quite well. But then again, you'll have to move into a plant-based diet somewhat. But if you do want your meat, your chicken and such, hopefully we can create those channels to stay open. But hey, we've got cows grazing out there. We do have a local farmer or farmer cattleman here. And then you have all the other local farmers around who could actually contribute themselves too. But this property out here could be opened up for the entire city to work it, to learn from it, and to educate the world with it also. And you'll notice lately, it was in the last 2 years, physicians from Flagstaff came down and started doing conferences here to bring physicians in from all over the world. Those physicians, it was basically a conference to discuss how to move your patients and clients more into a plant-based, healthier lifestyle. What a great way to start educating. Take this property that's being used for nothing right now other than grazing cattle and throwing water out on, use that gray water and start creating something that's going to generate millions of dollars of revenue to then subsidize the schools, subsidize our housing, our workforce housing, etc.
Okay. Next. We have seen a growing trend at the state level to disempower local governments and tie our hands regarding things like short-term rentals, cellular towers, and more. What do you feel is the best way to handle this going forward?
Whew. Courage and character. I'm watching things happen that I'm not liking at all, and I believe that there's some things going on behind our backs that I'm not happy with. This 5G is an interesting thing, and we have a lot of health-minded people in this town, me included. I don't want that 5G in here. I've already researched it. I've sent it to the council and the mayor, and so have many others. With regard, could you repeat that again?
We have seen a growing trend at the state level to disempower local governments and tie our hands regarding things like short-term rentals, cellular towers, and more. What do you feel is the best way to handle this going forward?
So, and that's such a good question, because one of the relationships that I'm going to create is a relationship with our governor, because I plan on having a lot of meetings with our governor. I would like to somehow, and this isn't the correct word, but separate Sedona, so that way Sedona could be an educator for the world. In doing so, we're going to regulate these Airbnbs. And by regulating them, because what happened with these Airbnbs, it literally shut down all of our housing and it increased the rents of whatever was left. So that's where we're having issues with affordability. Once we start regulating it, and this is really fun because I actually had a gentleman come up to me while I was putting in one of my signs, and I won't use names, and he says, I own a couple of them, but I manage them and I live here. And he says, and I believe they need to be regulated. And it felt so good to hear someone who's involved in it to actually say that. And I think that's extremely important because once we're able to regulate that, then we're going to open up these rentals and this housing, which would be more affordable, and move from there. But I think I covered all that, didn't I?
You're good. Sandy.
Yeah, well, the first thing we have to do, the legislature has to be back in session, which they are not. They cut their session short because of COVID. We had a bill going through the legislature to do a little bit in regard to short-term rentals, but the reason we can't regulate them is that state law currently does not allow us to regulate them. So until we change that, we can't make our own regulations with regard to short-term rentals. I am in favor of a more local control, and certainly in that issue, and I've been working on it for 3 years with the legislature. We were finally getting somewhere when they shut down due to the pandemic. But really what needs to happen is vote for different people because the current legislators aren't friendly to allowing cities to regulate short-term rentals. So vote for somebody who is. That's the first thing you have to do. We've got plenty of ways to lobby once they get back in session, but we can't do it until then. So stay tuned. I am on that one. And the first thing we have to do is get different legislators. So please vote. They all run every 2 years. You can do it.
Great. Thank you.
Ask them if they want that.
Okay, Sandy, this is the last question before closing remarks. You guys are good.
Oh, okay.
What is your vision for Sedona in 20 years?
In 20 years, I don't know what my vision is in 2 weeks with COVID here. It's difficult to know how we're going to change. It's going to change us dramatically. I would certainly like to see us remain as sustainable a city as possible. That's going to be difficult because we have to have the citizens who are willing to go along with it, and we have to be willing to pay for some of it. So I would like to see all of our trails preserved, all of our great natural beauty preserved, the environment. I'd like to see us get along better and not be as divided as sometimes we are here. So that means we need to talk to each other in a civil fashion more often. But I do believe, well, I've been here 48 and I still love it. If it's the same, it's not going to be the same, it's going to change. We can't avoid it changing. But I certainly would like to see it still be a welcoming community. And I hope that our transportation plan will mitigate enough of the traffic issues that we won't have as many cars coming here as we do now. And it'll be a little bit easier to get around and we can take transit places. I think I'm probably out of time. I can never see the time.
Pretty close.
Could you repeat that again?
What is your vision for Sedona in 20 years?
Well, I'm applying for a 10-year position because my goals are literally going out that far and even into 20 years.
We take 10 years.
So, but I'll even go 20 years. In 10 years, now it's a process to get there, but every 2 years, the first thing I want to do in these 2 years is complete every project that's on the board, get that crosswalk under the bridge, finish the historical park over at Los Abrigados. And I'm surprised that our city isn't doing this already. I'll be negotiating with some of the companies in town because there's many companies who have been using Sedona for many years for their own gain, and it's time to pay back. So I'm going to negotiate some things with them and see if they'd like to be part of being part of Sedona. And then from there also we want to create, and I always say we because it's about all of us, the residents of Sedona, we want to create these business models that create archetypes that set us apart from the rest of the world, so that way we become a destination location, a true destination location. But in that process, we're going to have to take advantage of our water. We're going to have to take advantage of taking our electric grid at some point, and we're going to have to become whole sustainable in order to show this world what is possible. Most of all, though, is a community, as Sandy was saying, a community that comes together, sets all their differences aside, comes together and sits at round tables like this of various generations and backgrounds, because I want the younger generations to learn from all of us, and I still learn from everybody else that's older than me, with all due respect. But they can learn from us because one day they're going to take this city over. And I want to make sure that they run it and that they enjoy it and that all of them are living within love. And then 20 years from now, there's no reason why we shouldn't be the wealthiest city this side of the Mississippi, with everyone in the world coming in to learn and to educate themselves through everything that we've established over time. Yay, I did it.
Perfect. We will now go to closing comments. Sandy, you're up first.
Thank you very much. First, I want to thank the League of Women Voters for giving us this opportunity to speak to the public, and the Chamber for sponsoring it. I'm sorry that I can't see all of you. I can't see any of you. It's very frustrating. I can only see me, and that's not what I want. So I hope that the time will be coming before too long, but I'm afraid large groups are just not going to happen anytime soon the way things are going. But they will happen eventually. We will get through it. It's just going to be, not going to be tomorrow, probably not going to be the end of the year, but soon. So again, I thank you, and I am asking for your vote. I would like to continue as your mayor for 2 more years, so I hope you will vote for me. I appreciate your support, those of you who do support me, I really do. And I've had a lot of support recently over the proclamation. I really have appreciated that. And I've appreciated very much hearing everybody's viewpoint on that issue. It's important that we do that. So thank you.
Thank you, Sandy. Kurt.
Well, I too want to thank all of you.
Thank you.
The Chamber and the Verde Valley League of Women Voters. And, you know, I don't want anyone to think that just because I talk about redirecting funds and such, this is business, and business needs to really, everyone needs to take a really good look at where our funds are going, especially with a financial crisis on its way. And if there's one not on its way, I'd be very surprised. So I really want to pay attention to every penny and then take that money and redirect it. First, we got to think about our residents. We need to think about everyone within the city, but direct it into those business models and archetypes that will bring additional, I'm not saying additional tourism, but additional funds and revenue. And then from there, we live happily ever after. But anyways, my name's Kurt Gehlbach, and I am running for the mayor. I would like your vote. Please go on to Kurt for Sedona website. We have a questionnaire on there for you. You can fill that out so we get to know more about you, about what your concerns and wishes are. And then also, if you're not voting and if you're not registered to vote, you can go right on there. It takes you right there, 2 minutes to register. And thank you. Thank you very much.
Well, I would like to thank you, Kurt Gehlbach, and Sandy Moriarty for participating in this forum today. The technology has been challenging, but it's been a privilege for me to be a part of it. I would like to remind the voters that Election Day for the primary election is August 4th. The last day to register to vote and change your party registration or update your address is July 6th. If you are not registered, besides going on Kurt's website, please go to www.servicearizona.com. Be sure to sign up also for a permanent early voting list to get your ballot in the mail. Thank you all for your attention and your support.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful day.